Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Thursday edition of our live Q&A with Alicia and myself, Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyers. How are you, Alicia?
I'm well, Mark. I am happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, this morning, Alicia and I had an opportunity to record a new video. And Alicia, do you want to share a little bit about that with the people that are tuning in while we wait for people to connect in?
Sure. Well, I think admittedly both of us are express entry nerds. And so occasionally there are questions that come up from clients or weird situations where we try to delve in and figure out the answers. And so this was one of those circumstances. It was an express entry application, it was a federal skilled worker application, and the foreign national principal applicant was married to a Canadian citizen. And the innocent question was, well, on the express entry profile, should I have put, is my spouse accompanying or not? And so you guys are going to have to watch the video to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we could also give them a little bit of a teaser. Let's see if this works here, how it's lined up. Oh, not bad. You can go to our website right now, choose resources, blog, and then find the blog post. If my spouse is
That'll ha-
Canadian, should they be listed as accompanying or non-accompanying in my EE profile? And just stay tuned because the video we go into a lot more depth, including exactly how to enter the information in to the profile. So
yeah.
stay tuned for that.
I won't leave you hanging, guys. The answer is in the blog. So there you go.
There you go. Well, she did technically because she's now making you go to the website, holthelaw.com, to find it. All right. So yes, Thursday, the weekend is just about here. Yesterday's live Q&A, Cedric came and joined me, and we had a really, really good discussion with a bunch of people on a number of different topics. And as always, you guys, we do our very best to try to get to as many questions as we can. We won't be able to get to all of them, that's for certain. But as we go through, there's certain things that we look for. One of them is that the question is of real general applicability, something that will benefit as many of the viewers of the live Q&A as possible. And conversely, when it gets down to something that really is a question specifically about your unique situation, well, we ring that bell and say, slide over to our website, right back over here, and click on this link to speak to a lawyer. And then this will take you right to the spot where you can schedule a consultation with one of us. And it's really by getting all of the facts and all the details that we can really give you proper legal advice. So this is all about information. It's all about answering questions. It's all about clarifying areas of complexity within the whole immigration process to Canada, whether you're a student looking for a study permit, a worker looking to apply for a work permit, spousal sponsorship, immigration through express entry, you name it, we try to cover as much as we can. So those are kind of the parameters. Now, the beginnings, we always spend just a little bit of time sharing a little bit of insight or a teaching moment or things like that. And then we dive into the questions. And so when the time comes, I'll give you a shout out and let you know that you can start posting the comments because we're broadcasting live to Facebook and to YouTube and to LinkedIn and even to Twitter. We try to just, to spread out the questions a little bit, but we do favor YouTube quite a bit. And we also have these available on the Canadian Immigration Podcast, where you can find it on your favorite podcast site, whether it's iTunes or Spotify or whatever. So make sure that if you're driving and you want to listen, you have the ability to do that. And you want to multitask while you're listening to the questions and answers. So absolutely. But other than that, Alicia, we've got a lot going. And if you guys go back to our website, you'll see that there are other blog posts that have also been released, and you'll definitely want to check those out. And if we flip back here, our firm website, and if you go to the blog post, is full of a ton of content, and we're constantly releasing new insight on all aspects of immigration. Alicia also released an amazing post on the Alberta Provincial Nominee Program, which we now call what, Alicia?
The Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. It changed its name back in February. So I still have a hard time remembering the acronym, but that is now what it's called.
Yes, it is. The Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. And so Alicia just finished presenting at our National Immigration Conference for the Canadian Bar Association on the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program, together with other lawyers who presented on other programs. And so Alicia has she's in a great position to assist anyone who has questions about this made in Alberta solution, really. All right. And of course, we do all the others as well. So, and as you watch, you'll also see that there are other blog posts on other provinces as well. Chanel did an excellent one on the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. And as we continue forward, you'll see ones popping up for all aspects of it. We also have a new one coming in right here by our newest lawyer, Cedric, who drafted one on basic reconsideration factors. So if your application gets refused, how can you prepare and request for reconsideration? Or is it even worth it doing? So take a look at this. Make sure that you access that resource. There's lots of resources available for you. And yeah. So Alicia, we have theoretically a couple more weeks until express entry draws are supposed to resume. Now, I should say a couple weeks is when July comes, and the minister did say July, but theoretically could wait till the very end of July and still meet that expectation. We know that Bill C-19 is working its way, 1918, working its way through the House. And in my live Q&A yesterday, one of the viewers said, when that gets approved in June, essentially, will they then start to implement the occupation or more strategically focused draws that are supposed to be then granted to the minister to have the ability to target? There's an expectation that for sure it's going to run through and it's going to go live. And I've got my reservations as to whether or not it will actually happen, but July is going to be a big month.
Yeah. Well, we're also still waiting for the details on how people can apply for that open 18-month work permit, because people are falling out of status every day now, and they're really hoping for that to be announced pretty soon. So we're waiting for that too.
Yes, there's a bunch of things that are all in the queue, and we're just waiting for Minister Fraser to pull the trigger so that we can figure out exactly what to do. Even the family sponsorship for citizens of Ukraine, we still don't have details on that. So all right. Well, let's give a few shout outs here before we dive into questions. Okay, we've got Gilbert. He says, hi, Mark and Alicia. Dagan, love that little handle you've got there, the monkey. That's pretty funny. Lace is over in Toronto. Good to see you, Danella. And Uzair, hi, Mark and Alicia. Good to see you guys. Thura, absolutely in the house. One of the Canadian Immigration Institute alumni and a graduate of the Express Entry step-by-step course. And that's actually a nice little lead in. If you go to our firm website, you can see up here at the top that this step-by-step course, the card is open and the masterclass will start June 27th to the 30th. But if you go here to the Canadian Immigration Institute and there's a link below, you will see here that you can access it right now, start going through the on-demand content. And then once June 27th hits, you can queue up all of your questions for a direct access to me 1 hour each evening over the Monday through Thursday here. And we've talked about this in the past. The reason we don't have July 1st is because we'll be enjoying what, Alicia?
Canada Day.
Canada Day, exactly. And the landing page here that you go to, it explains everything. And yes, there's accreditation for RCIC consultants. And if you go down to the bottom here as well, you'll see a breakdown of the whole structure of the course, all 642 minutes, which basically I think is a little over 10 hours of content. And boy, Alicia, this is the section. And Alicia has helped to prepare some of the supporting documents and tools that we use in this section, but mastering the documents, every single document, there are checklists and tools to help you sort things out and little information sheets that you can give employers to help make sure they've got the information for the reference letter. So it's all here, all designed to make it as streamlined as possible for you. So you're not searching all over the internet for hours trying to get answers that, well, you're not even sure that you can trust. And I guess one other thing that I will share with you guys, and I'll flip back to the main site before we get into the questions. Oh, that's a great picture. Anyways, I guess I'm happy to do this video. There is a series of videos that are being released right now on our YouTube channel that all relate to things you need to do to prepare to be ready for the express entry draws in July. And as a part of this, each of these videos give you unique insight into certain aspects that traditionally have caused huge problems for people that have resulted in applications getting rejected. And so as I scroll down through here, and this is on my end, it pulls up my little tube buddy that I use to SEO and optimize these videos. But I wanted to bring something up and specifically address it. I took probably an hour responding. So this is how important it is to me. But if you go down here, we have a comment from Smail, and I get a lot of these. So Smail basically said that, you're just trying to push people to purchase your course and that you don't need a course to successfully submit your Express Entry application. And it's just research and common sense, which I get these. I've had these for years and years, and I completely respect where Smail's coming from. Completely do. The reality is there are so much out there that is just scuzzy and unhelpful when it comes to this world of immigration. So many, groups and things that are all, sharing insight and trying to help people. And there's individuals that have gone and applied themselves and immigrated, and they've had no problems. And maybe Smail is one of them. I did it myself, no issues, right? But Alicia and I so frequently see the other side of the coin. We see individuals who they book consults with us as immigration lawyers after everything has gone south. And we see it all the time. It's so common. And people don't go post on a YouTube comment, oh yeah, I screwed up and got my application refused because I missed something, or I misinterpreted something, or I followed some WhatsApp group and they said, you don't need to worry about reference letters. Even if you get it close, it's good enough. Like, that's the messaging that happens when people go through and do something and submit their own application. Then they assume that same process will work for everyone else. And so when individuals like Smail post these comments, it's really hard for me because they actually do a lot of damage. And I don't care if Smail says, Mark, you suck. What you offer is terrible and you're a horrible immigration lawyer. That's totally fine for Smail. But Smail gives the impression that you don't need to really do anything more than research and use common sense. And it's simply not the case. And as you watch the video that Alicia and I, when it gets released on the Express Entry, whether or not to add a spouse, there are so many aspects of Express Entry that trip people up when they have used common sense, especially, and done all of the research. Where are you researching, right? And so anyway, so I wanted to point that out. And yes, I did get carried away and I responded 0 seconds ago, just before we went live. That's why I was a little bit live. So I encourage you to go take a look and review it. And like I said, I totally respect, and I said this right at the beginning, I said, thanks for your comment. I really appreciate your perspective. And it is true. And Alicia, we're full of an industry where there's a lot of scuzzy representatives who don't know anything more than maybe even Smail here, who charge people to file their applications, and they are all about money. And they don't take the time to really understand what's going on. And then there's a lot of people who filed their own application who consider themselves the expert and then say, you don't need to do it. You don't need to hire someone else. It was easy. I had no problems doing it. But anyways, so I'll end that little kind of response early, but I encourage you guys to go over and just check out the response that I had. And yeah, and the course is open and I love it and I'm excited about it. And I'm super excited to have a ton of people in there. And if I had my way, every single person that considers Express Entry will first look to the Canadian Immigration Institute and that little course to set them up for success. So there we go. All right, let's see who else we've got here. So Thesura, an alumnus, maybe you can post a comment there, Thesura, on your experience with the course that really, my good friend here, Smail, said was not worth attending. So your voice is a lot more than me just, pushing my own course, right? Because I'm a money grubbing lawyer. So anyways.
I'm going to jump in here, Mark. I think actions speak louder than words sometimes. And you guys can do your own background research and look into how the people that you're using to get advice from spend their time and energy. And you might be able to find really great resources, but you don't know what sort of background they have, what sort of training they have, whether they've done the case law research, whether they understand the administrative law process. And sometimes you're going to look at people who have spent their time not only helping clients directly, but also trying to give resources to people. And I honestly believe that Mark is one of those people. He's the kind of person that spends his time and energy for free giving back. And so he does a massive amount of volunteering. He's been the chair of our National Immigration Canadian Bar Association. And not only that, he's done a lot of videos. I don't even know how many videos there have been over the years, but we're not getting paid to do the videos. We're trying to give people information for free. And then if you need a little bit more directed advice, then we have courses that are affordable. And then if you need specific immigration advice, because we can't give immigration advice in a free video, we have to get enough information to be able to give helpful advice. And that requires us to understand the situation. And if you need that, then we can book a consultation to guide you specifically. But I leave it to you to make your own judgment calls.
Yeah, my my problem is that I'm a people pleaser by heart. And so whenever someone is critical, I then feel the obligation to defend myself or explain. And so I know I spend too much time thinking about this, but I care about it. And I think that's the reality. I care about all the people who listen to comments from Smail and then just assume, okay, well, it's easy. I really don't need to worry about this. And I don't have this document, but immigration common sense would suggest that I don't need to worry about this. And so that were some of the comments that Smail had made. And absolutely, many people go through and file their applications successfully and don't have a problem. And that's wonderful. But you and I, Alicia, every single day that we have consultations, inevitably, there are multiple people who have run into problems and they had no clue because they didn't know what they didn't know. I do want to pull this up. Joe has been a very frequent viewer and listener to our little live Q&A here. And I love this good news. He says, "Hi, Mark and Alicia. My study permit got approved and my wife's open work permit. Thanks to your amazing content and guides. We'll be there in Calgary in August. Albert's, let's go." So I'm gonna applaud Joe here, and that's a loud applaud. But that is so fantastic, Joe. And we absolutely love hearing the success stories of those people who benefited from the free content that we're producing. And I know Joe had a lot of questions over the last stretch here, and a lot of his questions were super effective because they benefited so many other people that were also applying for study permits. So very cool, and thank you so very much. And while you were talking, Alicia, I was able to pull up a few other comments from other individuals. And if we don't get to you, and shout outs to all those people that are tuning in, know that we've seen them and we hear them, and we just appreciate you being here. All right, let's jump over to a few supers here that are piling in. Okay, so Reshmi has got a couple questions, and Reshmi is also a frequent poster. She says, "Will Bill C-19 stop PNPs as well and only do NOx?" So we covered this a little bit, Alicia, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's important to realize and this is a little constitutional law teaching moment. So there's a division of powers in Canada, and there are some things that are under federal jurisdiction, and then there are agreements that the federal government has with the provinces. And one of those agreements was that the provinces, each Canadian province can choose, and the territories can choose who's going to come into their province to a certain extent. And so the nice thing, people accept EOIs from provinces, wait for jobs to
she's just
resume.
talking about that people have accepted expressions of interest and they're waiting. And this is something that came up yesterday, Alicia. People are like, it's taking a long time to get our nominations, and what's the holdup? And it's all understandable with work permits expiring, right? We're in this world. Come on, Minister Fraser, like, release the information for the PostGrad Work Permit 18-month extension.
Open work permit eligibility under public policy.
Yes.
Yeah, so yes, the federal government is going to be probably tweaking things with Bill C-19. There's also that private members motion, motion 44, where they're trying to urge the minister within 120 days of May 11th of actually implementing a program that's going to provide a pathway to some temporary workers, including postgrad students. So those things are in the works. It might be in effect the same thing that's coming through the works, and they're working on one big overhaul to the express entry system. But at the same time, They're not saying that the provincial nomination draws are going away. Those have still been trucking along relatively steadily, and each province is responsible for how they manage their quota of nominations. So those things are still happening. What is, of course, the issue is people whose temporary status, their work permits might be expiring, and maybe they don't have a bridging open work permit option because of certain circumstances. So yes, the PNP draws are still coming along, and even if Bill C-19 does happen, it should not affect the provincial nomination program unless the provincial nomination program itself is targeting specific occupations, which some of them are starting to do.
Yes. All right. This next question is from Maninder, and this is an express entry question. So she says, I have a job offer without LMIA. Should I update it in express entry profile? I'm applying for the accelerated tech pathway. And this is an example, and it's an exact example of the confusion that exists, notwithstanding the common sense approach. So common sense would say it's a job offer. It works for the purposes of the accelerated tech pathway in Alberta, right? That's a job offer. So should I update my profile now to get those extra 50 points in express entry because I have a job offer with a Canadian employer? This is common sense, right, Alicia? But what's the
This is one,
reality?
yeah, this is one of the biggest problem areas in terms of what qualifies as arranged employment. So it's called an offer of employment, but the legal definition is what qualifies as arranged employment. And so, Meninder, unless you have already been working in Canada for more than a year on an employer-specific LMIA exempt open, well, not open work permit, but a work permit that allows you to work in Canada for a specific employer, if you haven't done that for a year, then you can't qualify. You cannot claim an offer of employment in Canada because it's a very technical definition under the ministerial instructions and the Act and the regulations. So be really careful about that. Yes, and I don't know which province you're looking at. Yes, somebody has offered you an accelerated tech pathway job, but that doesn't mean that you can claim those express entry arranged employment points.
All right. Next question is a tricky one, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to tackle it fully, but we'll try. So Dark Sky says, does work experience gained while you're a full-time student inside Canada at a non-Canadian university remotely? Now, this is the issue. I'm assuming that the person is studying overseas. So at this stage, studying overseas, but in Canada. I'm working through this, so bear with me here. So, and we don't know whether this person is a postgrad work permit or not. Let me start from the beginning. Does work experience gained while you're a full-time student inside Canada at a non-Canadian university remotely count towards CEC NOC ABO Canadian work experience on an open work permit, not a study permit? So I'm assuming it's probably like an accompanying spouse. And this is where it's really, really hard, Dark Sky, to be able to give this advice. I'm assuming that the person is in Canada, likely on a spousal open work permit,
But
or,
how are they a full-time student
well, full-time student outside of
at the
Canada.
non-Canadian university?
So attending virtually, maybe it's a UK school or something, I'm assuming. So if that is the case, and you can see, guys, how hard we struggle when we have very specific questions like this, because there's a lot of parts that we just don't know that require clarification. But if we make an assumption that the open work permit is, not, well, I'm assuming it's not a postgrad work permit, but I guess it could be. But it's an open work permit. They're working, so they're working in a skilled occupation. They're attending school, but not in Canada. It's a school outside of Canada. And what they're trying to get at is, we know if you are a full-time student in Canada attending a Canadian school, then no, it doesn't count, even if you hold a postgrad work permit and a study permit at the same time. But I have to assume that this non-Canadian university is actually outside of Canada. And so taking those parameters, Alicia, what, like, do you think? Like, I can't see any reason it wouldn't be countable, but in every single case, I will ring that bell because we just don't have enough information. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you can only count Canadian work experience if for sure your employer is a Canadian employer. So that means that the employer itself is incorporated in Canada, either federally or provincially or extrajudicially or extra provincially registered, rather. So the employer has to be a Canadian employer, and we don't really know about that in order to be able to claim Canadian work experience points. But yes, the wrinkle is, if you're a full-time student at a Canadian post-secondary institution, you're not allowed to claim work experience at the same time.
Excellent. All right. Okay, let's jump to some more questions here. Okay, I'm going to pull this one up. This is a general one. And usually when people post questions, let's just adjust this just a wee bit here. When people post questions that say, hey, do I qualify? And that's the case here with King. He says, dear all, I would like to have your kind advice. I am 37 years old and an accountant with 10 years of experience. So will I have a big chance to be selected if I apply for express entry? Now, the reason I pulled this one up is because this is many, many, many people. And I would say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, maybe maybe I would say possibly. But right now, Alicia, and what King is asking, no connection to Canada, human capital alone, if they were to open up no program specified draws in July, do you think King has a big chance to be selected?
And of course, I mean, the whole caveat on here is we don't know the rest of King's life or experience or work history or spouse or anything like that. But it is really tough right now. And there is maybe a small window of time when those new, we don't know because the legislation hasn't been
Mm-hmm.
finalized, when they look at specific occupations, maybe the
Yep.
minister will say, we really need accountants and we're going to highly value experience as an accountant. Maybe there will be some opportunity there. But for now, if we're looking at CRS scores alone on human capital, then the problem is age, right? As soon as you tick over into your 30s, you're losing points every single year that you have a
5
birthday,
points every year.
unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
that's going to really drag down the score. We don't know what King's language scores are, but even if language scores were perfect, the age is going to drag down the score. And I don't see how King could have a CRS above 500 in this scenario.
Yep. And when I look at this situation, we get this a lot, you guys. A lot of times we have consultations with people trying to strategize their chances, because the last thing in the world I want is someone to waste a whole bunch of money on educational credential assessments and language tests and rewriting it, when in the end their human capital isn't going to be enough. And prior to the February 13th draw 176 from last year, where they scooped everybody out of the through that CEC draw. Prior to that, I considered it actually professional negligence to charge someone to submit a profile in the pool when they didn't have a chance of getting approved based on the rounds of invitations. But after that draw, Alicia, and watching to see what some of the provinces are doing, including Alberta,
Mhm.
now, and because we don't know which occupations are going to fit on the list or where the minister is going to go, it would almost be negligent in the opposite way for us not to encourage people to at least submit a profile and put it in there, so you've given yourself a chance, even if, like King, your CRS, your comprehensive ranking system score is lower because of your age or other factors associated with your human capital. And so, do you retain us to assist you with that? Well, of course we're here to help, but some people may decide, you know what, I think I have a very low chance. I'll subscribe to Mark's course and I'll take it with him, and I'll get set up so I know what I need to do. I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars to retain a representative. And other people will say, well, you know what? I'm really not sure, but I'll just put it in myself. There's no cost to a profile.
Mhm.
Mark and Alicia provide a ton of resources, and the other lawyers with Holt Immigration Law provide tons of resources in their, through their videos, and I can learn from them and get enough of what I need to do to submit my profile. So yeah, the world has changed, Alicia, and I
Yeah.
encourage at this stage anyone who meets the eligibility to go ahead and put a profile in. Even though in the beginning years I was really angry with overseas consultants and other individuals who charged fees to submit profiles when I knew darn well there wasn't a chance that it was going to get approved. And they were eligible, and they would couch it in that way, but would never talk about the actual likelihood of getting a round of invitation. And we would have consults with these people all the time, and so frustrated, but the world has changed.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to our next question here. Okay, this question comes from Mohammed Lishan. And Mohammed says, if I study more than 50% of my course while inside Canada but online, will I not be eligible for a PostGrad work permit? Kindly clarify, Mr. Marks. I'll have Ms. Alicia's respond to that.
So take a look at the directions from IRCC on this. And so it's very important when you look at the postgrad work permit eligibility and their policy on online courses. So the general rule is that you will not qualify for a postgrad work permit if the percentage of your course of study is greater than 50%. There were some time-limited exemptions or exceptions to that rule because of COVID. And because immigration knew that all of the post-secondary institutions basically had to go online because of COVID restrictions. So depending on when your course of studies was, when you completed that, and which terms it was in, there may be some room for argument. But in general, if your course of studies is more than 50% online, then it's not going to qualify for postgrad work permit eligibility, which is a big problem.
Absolutely. I think we should, I can't remember if we have, I don't think we have a blog post on this topic, do we? On this particular one? Because I've had this question come up a couple times. So Mohammed, we'll take a look at this, and this might be a good one to do a short little blog post on. So I'll make a note of that. But good question, Mohammed, a very good question. Okay, Adil says, hi, love your channel. Would love some advice on study permits for people who are Pakistani but live in the UAE. What to mention in ties to the home country? Oh boy. Yeah, that's the question, Adil. That is the question. So what are the problems with this, Alicia? Like, what's the issue here for Pakistanis and many that are in the UAE?
So, Adil, take a look at the blog post that I wrote on the top 10 reasons your study permit gets refused. So, I do have some resources listed on our website under resources under the blog. One of the big problems for people who are Pakistani who live in the UAE or other countries in the Middle East is that it is extra hard to try to prove ties to your home country, especially if you've been living in the UAE or Saudi Arabia or somewhere else in the Middle East for many years and you don't own property back in your home country. Immigration often says lack of temporary intent because there's no ability to prove that you're going to go back and work in the UAE, that you have authorization or you can continue to get work authorization there. And it's really difficult to show that there are strong ties to that home country. So when you're working in a different country, you don't have citizenship or nationality there, it makes it extra hard to show ties. So take a look at all those other things that can prove ties to your home country and have a very strong reason for why you want to do a study permit, how it fits with your career plans, how you're going to use that back in Pakistan in order to, grow your career, and why can't you do that locally? That's another big issue. Right? Why are you spending thousands of dollars on a Canadian study permit and education if there could be something else locally available?
Yes. Now I want to shift over here, Alicia, and we'll go to our next question. And this question kind of dovetails into policy talk. So Raghav says, hi, what is the possibility of having the new program, which the minister has talked about, be similar to CBA's submission, the one with 18 months of experience? So I want to just share, once again, as Alicia said, I'm just about finished my time serving on the executive of the Canadian Bar Association's National Immigration Section. But as a part of that process, I was specifically involved with this particular submission. This was back on February the 16th, and we had sent this to Minister Fraser, And we often do this. We provide our thoughts and direction on what new programs could be created to help, in particular, international students was the focus for this, to transition to permanent residence. So obviously, one of the things that we highlighted was a request to do the extension to the, to the temporary public policy, that 18-month work permit, which then the minister did announce. And it wasn't like we had, instructed him with any new creative solution. It was like, just get her done. But then the rest was a pathway to permanent residence, which we had proposed, which could potentially be modified to give a greater ability for international students to get through something similar to a Canadian experience class. So if we look down here at our recommendations, one of the things that we talked about was to introduce a pilot program for recent graduates with Canadian experience that targets international students who remained in Canada to start their careers and wish to permanently settle. And one of the factors for qualification we talked about was 18 months of postgrad work experience. And, we kind of called it our CEC plus. And so the reality is, with that submission and with that proposal, it was a way to hopefully get around the reality that many international students, if we look at the comprehensive ranking system right now, and if the minister was to open it up today and do a no program specified draw, there are many, many, many international students that would simply not qualify. Your CRS scores wouldn't be high enough, even with your education, your Canadian education, and even working for a year in Canada. It still may not be enough, because often you don't have those extra 3 years of work experience coupled with your good language that gives you those skill transferability bonus points. So those are, so what is the possibility? We'll see, right? And those of you who are wondering where this information is, you can go to the Canadian Bar Association's website, and the immigration law section nationally has a whole bunch of the previous submissions and things that we've done. And you can see here, this is the main website. We've still have the pro bono initiative for Ukraine and for Afghanistan. Those are some of the initiatives. And then when it comes to the executive, you'll see that I am just about ready to drop off. We'll just jump over here to the executive. So Kyle's just about finished as the chair, and myself here, I am the past chair. And so in September, I will drop off as everybody moves up through the table, and Kyle becomes the immediate past chair. And my term serving on the national executive, the Canadian Bar Association's immigration section, will come to an end. And I'll tell you, that was working and being able to connect with immigration and the wonderful colleagues that I was associated with was just a treasure. Really, really positive experience. All right. Okay. Here's a good question, Alicia. And I love these focused on express entry. We're now starting to get a lot more people that are interested in this. And as always, you guys, these questions, the vast majority, I've very, very, very rarely had a question come up in our live Q&As that isn't already covered in the course materials for the DIY course, or something that I would cover in the live master classes. But Ms. says, I worked under multiple NOC codes at the same company, but I claimed points only for one experience in NOC A with 2 years experience. And I listed the other experience, NOC C, in my APR. What's your opinion on that? So I'll provide a little qualification here, Alicia. My big concern right now is, did you actually work 30 hours full time in that, or part time to meet the threshold? But Alicia, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so in general, if you're claiming, so you have to meet the minimum eligibility. So you've got to make sure for federal skilled worker that you've got at least 1 year continuous, 12 months, 30 hours per week at least. You can work more than one job, but you can't claim over 30 hours in any given week. So you've got to get 1,560 hours. And you've got to make sure that if you're claiming that as a NOC A, you can back it up. And so if you're at that one company, but working different roles within the company, you don't want to overstate your NOC category, right? If you are only working for 2 months in NOC A or 6 months in NOC A and half of it was in a lower NOC, you'll want to explain that so there's no possibility that they think you're trying to inflate your experience or misrepresentation. The other thing is, yes, if it's true that you do meet your minimum eligibility, and you meet whatever you're claiming for your foreign work experience, then if you have low skilled work that you know is not going to qualify, and again, there's a caveat with this because things are going to change with tiers, so be careful. Some of those knock category work jobs might actually, in fact, start to qualify for foreign work experience. We'll have to see how that all plays out. But if you know right now that you have knock C that currently doesn't qualify, then you do have to disclose it, but you're not going to rely on it for points. So in general, yes, your knock O, A, or B is going to be what you rely on for your points. If you have stuff that falls within C or D, you want to declare it and put it in your personal history, but you don't rely on it for points in your work history.
And I'm going to give one of these. Ms., that was the exact kind of question that we love, because that has implications for so many people who are legitimately going through this, because this is not common sense, right? Well, you could try to use common sense to figure it out, but the reality is these are the exact type of questions that people run into that are legitimate and genuine, that you just can't find information or answers. All right. Now, I'd asked Alicia, I said, I wish people that who had taken the course could post their thoughts. And it always amazes me, people that have gone through, who come back and just watch just for fun. And so Sajad says the course is worth every penny, believe me. Chris says, yeah, the course is so very helpful and so worth it. And then Thesura says, I went through Mark's course last year and I can guarantee that it's totally worth it. So yeah, I appreciate you guys jumping on, and that really, really means a lot, because, hey, what is my word worth? Like nothing, but people who come on and, it just, yeah, I love when alumni come back and share their thoughts. Okay. Sajad has a question here. So he says, I got a document request in February and responded, but haven't heard anything since. This is a CAC inland submitted May 2021. Is that normal? And then he said, again, the course is worth every penny, highly recommend it. So yeah, Sajad, thanks so much for connecting in. So Alicia, what are your thoughts on that?
So there have been document requests, which means that great, they are processing applications. They're trying to get through that backlog. They knew they had a huge inventory, which is why they paused new draws, new invitations to apply haven't been occurring under the general no program specified, and not even under CEC since last year. So they knew that. Now they're trying to finalize applications. February, it's 4 months, you haven't heard anything. I don't think it's necessarily a big problem. I think they're
Yeah.
probably just finalizing your file.
Yeah. And understand, Shajad, as well, that there is a massive, massive push to clear the backlog with FSW, to the point that we're now seeing those CECs start to climb up, just for the simple reason that they're trying to clear all of those FSW backlogs, because the minister said that the goal was to get it done like now, like in June. And before before the whatever they are, the new draws start in July. So I don't think at this stage it's something to be super concerned about, but just, yeah, let us know, reach out, Sajad. And I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly the situation with you. I know we discussed it, but yeah, I wouldn't get too concerned about it. But at the same time, if it continues a little bit longer, then there's always the ability to request an ATIP and just see if there's anything else going on in the background. But even those are being delayed. So yeah, but that's a good question, Sajad. Okay, enjoy story. I'm gonna have to check out that channel. So federal skilled worker, express entry applicant got married after the passport request and informed IRCC. I requested that my wife be added as non-accompanying initially, as she was pregnant. Now, after the baby is born, can I add them both as accompanying? So obviously the application, it's still underway. It hasn't been approved. So Alicia, is there any restrictions on now adding again other individuals? And then they threw in a, you guys are the best. Oh, we like being buttered up. That's very nice.
So yes, you can add family members. Yes, of course, you have to declare when the baby's born, make sure that you've got that birth certificate. I know sometimes countries are delayed on birth certificate issuance because of COVID and offices being closed and things like that. But do not land, do not come here and land as a permanent resident unless and until you have already added your spouse and your child as accompanying. That, of course, is going to change your requirement for settlement funds if you're looking under federal skilled worker. So be very careful about that. Also, the required settlement funds went up. And so as of I guess last week, people had to show those slightly higher settlement funds. So that could be an issue. So be really careful. Um, Sometimes it's hard to get the spouse medically examined if they're late stage in their pregnancy because
Mhm.
often physicians don't recommend having the x-ray if you're in second or third trimester. So I'm guessing maybe that's why you put your spouse as unaccompanying initially, but you do want to add them on now. It's going to be probably so much faster than trying to turn around and sponsor
Yeah.
them later, because even though it will delay the end stage processing of your current express entry application, to do a spousal sponsorship right now, an outside Canada spousal sponsorship, is the posted processing times are 23 months. It's 2 years. You don't want to be separated from your wife and little baby for that long. So please contact us. We can go through what you need to do to make sure that you do that, but don't land. Don't come to Canada yet
Yeah.
unless you've added them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gurjeet says, again, I'll try to decipher this. Will my study visa get refused if I am an engineer through Chinook as I watched your video? So what I think he's asking is that we talked about the higher your education is in the context of a study permit already, that sometimes
Mhm.
the system will say, well, why do you want to come and take a lower, level diploma or degree when you're already
Yeah.
an engineer? So I think that's what the question is. And then that video that I did on Chinook with Will Tao, we talked about that a little bit. So I think that's what Gurjeet is asking, Alicia. So, the question is pretty straightforward. Will my study visa get refused? Well, what
So
what
the answer is always it depends on
it
these big,
depends.
broad questions. So, but one thing is to look out for, if you are already an engineer, you've already done a 4-year degree, you're already a professional and probably have a license, because this is a regulated occupation. You can't just walk off the street and start building a bridge. You need to make sure that you have the accreditation locally to be able to do that. So if you are an engineer, you've been working as an engineer, you have high level of career experience, and all of a sudden you want to go back and, I don't know, become a baker. They're going to
Yeah.
wonder why, right? They're going to say, why are you trying to apply for a study permit for a completely different occupation? But if you're doing, let's say, I don't know, a master's in engineering, well, maybe that makes sense, right? Maybe you're extending your career, you're taking the next step in terms of a logical progression of your career and your study plan. And hopefully, there hasn't been too long of a gap. You got good marks in your first engineering degree, which is always a tricky thing, I
Mhm.
know, because
Yep.
engineering is tough. So just be careful in terms of what kind of study permit, what is your plan, have you explained your temporary intent? All those things are very important.
All right. Next question here is from Uzair. And he says, are T4 slips, another express entry question, are T4 slips important to provide when applying as a CEC candidate, or salary, pay slips and employment will suffice?
Yeah. So you always want to do whatever you can to make sure that your proof of Canadian work experience is as rock solid as possible. So yes, you have to have that employer's letter of reference, the make sure it's on letterhead, make sure it's by your direct supervisor, HR manager, make sure it meets all those requirements. But you also want to provide your pay stubs. So showing that you have been employed in that job, and it depends how long you've been there and how many years of Canadian work experience you're claiming. But the T4 slip is a Canadian tax document that you would get at the end of each taxation year. So the timing of that T4 depends on how long you've been working at what point in the calendar year. If you have it, that's great. Make sure to include it. If you don't have it because of the way that your work experience fell and you didn't happen to meet that tax year when you're applying, then for sure put those salary slips in, the pay slips, and then the letter of employment, and maybe even some bank account balances showing that you received that to your account and it's coming through your regular employer.
All right. Okay, let's jump to the next one. This one, oh, it's just a comment. It's Luna says, long-time listener, first-time commenter. Thanks for all this precious free information. I'll give you an applause. That's awesome. Okay, next, this one is a question. So Vishal says, when I filled out the form for the Quet visa, I marked yes, that my wife and daughter would accompany me to Canada. Can I go to Canada alone, or do I need to go with my wife because I am from India?
So I'm assuming that maybe your spouse is the Ukrainian citizen in this case.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
yeah, so I wonder if they're allowing the accompanying spouses to come before the primary applicant if they're not actually Ukrainian citizen. You know what, I don't know if they're allowing
Yeah,
that in practice.
yeah, I don't either. We can try to guess, and I would assume that the principal applicant would actually need to come first, in the
Mhm.
same way that a dependent who's applying for a spousal open work permit, for instance, the principal spouse would need to obtain theirs first if they were coming to work or study before that accompanying spouse could get their dependent work permit. That may be the case here, Vishal, but yeah, I recommend, in this situation, yeah, we just really don't know. We can't answer that one. So you stumped us here. Okay. Next question is from Lace, and this is one that we have seen many, 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 many times. My postgrad work permit will end now in August. I'm in the line for express entry with 504. What if in July I'm not invited to apply and the visa extension doesn't come in time? What should I do? Right there, my friend. There are
Yeah.
so many different factors at play here. And the advice that we would give, the specific legal advice, really is what you're asking. That's something that we would definitely need to get a whole lot more information from you and really reason it through and talk about things, practical and legal.
Yeah. In general, everybody who is in Canada has a legal obligation to maintain valid status, right? So you want to make sure that if your status is expiring, you are transitioning to maintain some sort of legal status so that you're not in a situation where you could be removed from Canada, because that would be bad news. So make sure to book a consult, though. There's a lot of moving parts in this one, and the timelines are pretty tight.
All right, next question. This one is from Chris. And Chris says, do I still need to restore my status even if I have applied for visitor record last May 2022? No results yet. The postgrad expired in June. So waiting for a response on the visitor status and asking if they need to restore. So maybe you can help to clarify that, Alicia.
Mhm. So the rule, and Chris, we don't know exactly what happened or how you submitted, or if you've got proper confirmation that everything was done correctly when you submitted that change of status application to the visitor. But the rule is generally, as long as you applied to change your status prior to your postgrad work permit expiring, and as long as that application was complete. So this is the big issue, is making sure that that application was complete when you submitted it, then you usually have what's called implied or maintained status to remain in Canada. You cannot work anymore, of course, if your postgrad work permit has expired, but you can remain in Canada until you get a decision back from immigration. Um, Restoration is what you would apply for if for some reason you have fallen out of status, if you no longer have status, and you can only apply for restoration within a certain period of time of your status expiring. There's an extra restoration fee of $200 in addition to the normal processing fees for a visitor visa or whatever other type of temporary visa you're applying for. So just be really careful. Normally, you don't have to restore unless you've fallen out of status or been refused on that visitor visa extension. But that's just in general, and we need to make sure to figure out what's
Yeah,
happening in your case.
exactly. All right, let's get to this comment from Mr. Bogaki. I love typos, but they actually are very, very fitting. It says, hey, Mark, we finally went through it and we are just awaiting for our Coper to arrive. Thank you for all your hell. And please keep up all the work you're doing for others on YT. That's so fitting because sometimes, you guys, it does feel like hell. It feels that way for us every bit as much as it feels like for you guys. And sometimes we have to give hell when we're in the process of battling immigration, when people's applications are getting rejected and we feel it's just cruel and heartless. And sometimes we have to dive into the depths of that dark, kind of hot, flaming place to get the results for our clients that we need. And sometimes sleeping at night is not so good either. Knowing that you've got something, you're not sure if it's going to go through. You've done the very best you can, but the client has kind of put themselves into a position where it's really tough. And I've got one right now that I feel like we're going to have to go through hell to be able to get it successfully approved. She made a couple mistakes on her study permit application. There should have been no reason why she isn't completing her degree and finalizing her school and getting her postgrad, but she made a simple little mistake. Common sense, if you upload a document, that's probably good, right? But no, you have to go to the bottom for any requested document and click next and advance and resubmit everything all again. She didn't do that, got refused. Then, because of her school start times and waiting for the university to get back to her, she exceeded the 3-month restoration period, Alicia. And so then she applied to restore her status as a student, and it was rejected a second time. Then she was out of status. So we're not sure if we can make this work. We're going to definitely try, but she needs to go home, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And so, yeah, I would classify that as HE double hockey sticks. All right. Okay, let's go. That's a great question. Okay, we'll answer a couple more and then we'll wrap up here. All right, next one that I have here is, I'll go with Anushka's comment here. I love how you react to these kinds of negative feedback professionally. Well, like one thing I understand with people is that everybody comes from their own perspective. They have their own paradigm. So in the case of that person who posted the comment, I'm sure they've seen so many times where people's lives have been ruined by horrible, crappy representatives who didn't care about them, who just took their money and left them hanging. So already there's this feeling that out there, all through the ranks of our industry, that, oh, you're actually better off doing it yourself. All the information is on the website and it's easy. And so I see that all the time. And I completely understand where they're coming from. We've seen the horrific, impact on people's lives because they chose the wrong representative. And unfortunately for immigration, they have no ability to distinguish whether it's a consultant, a lawyer, whether that consultant or lawyer knows what they're doing. So it's buyer beware. And sometimes, well, for me, it always ceases to amaze me how frequently people will take advantage of their own countrymen and people from their own country. They speak the language, and so there's this trust given to them, and then they exploit them. And I see that a lot. There's wonderful consultants out there. There's wonderful lawyers out there who do amazing things for their communities. So I don't want to in any way give some generalized comment about everyone, but there's enough out there, a lot out there, that result in people saying, oh, hiring someone isn't going to help you at all. I get that all the time. So thank you. We try to be professional, but sometimes I'm not.
Anuska, I wanted to add to that. There's a saying that my dad has always repeated to me that I found has been helpful over the years. And he says, you can please some of the people some of the time, and you can please all of the people some of the time, but you can never please all the people all the time.
All the time.
So it's just not possible. We do our best, and that's all we can do.
Yep, exactly. Okay, we're going to wrap it up, I think, here. Yeah, I'll pull one Facebook comment up here, and this is one we also get a lot of. Okay, so Annie says, "Hi Mark. Nowadays, without a job offer, it is very difficult to get PR. But how to apply for jobs in Canada?" So Alicia, while I'm pulling up Chanel's blog post here and to share, why don't you we'll finish off with this one because there's so many people asking this.
Yeah. So make sure that you're looking for targeted employment opportunities. Make sure that you are not paying a recruiter. It should be the company is paying recruiters to try to find you if you have skills that's going to match for their employment opportunities. One of the helpful free resources is the Government of Canada Job Bank. So make sure that you check there. Anybody who's listing a job that they are thinking about applying for a labor market impact assessment for has to list on the job bank. Check out Chanel's article because that's going to give you some helpful information in terms of, how do you work with recruiters? How are you going to possibly find jobs? What are the ways that you can possibly be looking for job offers that are legitimate? In terms of practical advice, it always helps if you have somebody in Canada who knows about your quality of work and who can speak to Canadian employers on your behalf or with you. Yeah, go to the job bank, search for your national occupation
If the
classification
link works,
code or job title.
we'll update that
Yeah.
link. The job bank's been undergoing some changes. And so just recently the look and feel of it has been modified. So we'll update that link.
But if you search the job bank and job match, you can sign up for job match. If you don't have a Canadian social insurance number, there's a different type of profile. So you just have a general profile that you'd put in there. But at least you can post your resume. And if employers are interested, hopefully you'll be able to try to get your foot in the door through the job bank job match process.
Yeah. And all of the resources and everything are all contained right here on the job bank website, which is easy to Google search. So there you go. All right. Well, Alicia, we've had another good live Q&A today. And I think at this stage, we should probably wrap it up so we can get back to our clients and all of the ongoing work that we have. I know you've got some fun plans for the summer with your family. And so as we say here in Southern Alberta, we're trying to make hay while the sun shines, although it's been pretty rainy lately over the last little stretch, which is great for the grass. But and then I saw just the other day, to digress a little bit, Yellowstone. And my good friend and I were down in Billings last month, and we strongly considered driving through Yellowstone. And now all those, much of the roads in certain sections are washed completely away. And so people are not even going to be able to enjoy Yellowstone the way they had for probably another year for them to rebuild. So rain, sun, snow, hail, we're at the mercy of Mother Nature. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It was great having you. We couldn't do this without all of the questions that you guys have posted. We know that we weren't able to get to everybody's question. We do the best we can in the hour that we have. I'll be back Wednesday of next week at 10 a.m. And then Thursday again, Alicia will be joining me at 11. Same time, same place, right here on whatever channel you guys are watching. One last little notification once again that the Express Entry course, the card is now open. The link is in the link below here. You can access all of the information about the course. It's all right here on the Canadian Immigration Institute page. And finally, if you like what you're hearing and you feel like this information is helpful, but you want just a little bit more direction and advice, or you just want the peace of mind of having us assist you with your entire application, getting it ready to be submitted, you can easily start here by just clicking on Speak to a Lawyer on the holthelaw.com website and choose the lawyer that you want. And it's kind of fun because we're all in different locations, and you'd be surprised at some of the availability for times that's now available as each of us works in our various regions. So Alicia's in Calgary, I'm in Lethbridge, Alberta, Chanel's in Toronto, and Cedric is based out of Ottawa. But depending on where we're at in any given time, our calendar and the availability for consultations is really easy to locate and find. And there's often will be availability immediately, almost within a day or even less, if you need to engage with us for one of your emergency, or just any advice that you need. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you next time.